Welcome back to The Person Everyone Needs, and looking forward to continuing our conversation on my best friend from the Bible, Jonathan. We need to be reminded that Jonathan became prince the day that King Saul became king. And so as we go back to jumping in the story, let's do that now. The day King Saul is thrust onto the world stage, Jonathan's life will never be the same, and it seems like he steps into the moment prepared for what his life's calling is. He's now a warrior at the right hand of the Father. He's a gifted leader. Saul seems to struggle to step up into his new life after being anointed king. He goes back home, just keeps living as if nothing has happened. There were people in Israel who said that he could do nothing to help protect the nation, and it seems Saul believed the negative publicity. He was happy to live on his dad's farm until there was an attack on the nation that he was supposed to be leading. The Spirit of God gave him unforeseen courage. The people of Ammon attacked Israel and gave an ultimatum that all the men must give up their right eyes. This mandate would give Ammon a tactical advantage, obviously, in war, and place great shame on Israel's people. The news would go around quickly. The nation would be horrified with this distinguishing impairment. As Saul hears this news, he is plowing with oxen at the time, and he decided to slaughter the oxen, sending pieces of them throughout the tribes with this word: "May this happen to your oxen if you don't come to help your brothers against Ammon." And Israel responds. There are over 300,000 that deliver on Saul's request. They thoroughly rout the Ammonites in one morning. One morning. In 7 days, Ammon threatens. Israel unites, and their new king forges as a new nation. The tribes of Israel are now one people. The people are so in favor of Saul at this point that they want to hunt down the men who spoke negatively of Saul to kill them. Saul shows mercy and says, "Let's just move forward." Great leader that he was, and the people began to rejoice in Israel. God has sent a mighty king. But sadly, the rejoicing doesn't last for long. Saul struggles to know his place as king. He isn't a prophet or seer, and so he has no place to make religious decisions. These roles were never separated before in Israel. The prophet Moses and the priests of Aaron were the leaders of the people in all facets of life. The judges were defenders of the people, but always affected the role of the spiritual leader too. Not so with the king. The king is to govern the people, keep them safe from outside invaders and inside lawbreakers. Samuel goes into obscurity to allow for Saul's leadership to take hold in Israel. However, he's still the spiritual guide. He told them, "I'm going to be praying for you." Saul knows to consult the Lord before entering battle, so he sends for Samuel. Samuel delays. Saul is ready for battle. It takes Samuel 7 days. When Saul sees people starting to leave, knowing he needs these people to win the war, he helps God by going ahead and starting the sacrifice. The king does not understand that God is all he needs. Saul does not trust in the only one who brings victory. He fears the people when he should fear God. Needing confirmation from heaven to inspire and keep the people, he makes the sacrifice to God. Saul knows it isn't his job. And just as Saul lights the sacrifice, he sees Samuel coming down the road and runs to meet him. He wants to explain why he ignited the offering. "I was losing the people," said Saul. Samuel's reply, "That's your problem. You thought they were yours. You thought they were the one who gave you your power. And because of that, you will lose all God had for you." This moment is a big deal, not just for Saul, but for Jonathan too. His destiny, forever altered, becomes subject to God's future choice. He was in line to rule as king, but that will never happen now. God gives Israel to another king's lineage. But Jonathan will continue to live as though reality has never fazed him. A warrior at the right hand of the king, he's loyal and he's a leader. He's strong and mighty and ready for whatever God gives him. The Philistines at this point have created havoc across the entire land of Israel. However, Jonathan defeats a garrison of Philistines at Gilgal and overwhelms a fortified city well into the interior of Israel. This campaign is quite noteworthy because it's a lonesome victory at a dismal time in Israel. Jonathan was a mighty man that warranted trust and inspired hope. He was the type of commanding leader that could lead a nation into battle. This is obviously noteworthy because it's the first and most significant victory prior to David and Goliath's scene. Jonathan stands above the masses of Israelites as a possible peacemaker for God's people. In the meantime, we find Israel overrun by invaders. The Philistines, the Amorites, the Amalekites are all constant irritations to the people of Israel. The Philistines, at the height of the Iron Age, they held the monopoly on iron in the land. In fact, to guard the economic strongholds, they had raiders and spies to ensure there were no blacksmiths in all of Israel. They were so meticulous that there wasn't even farming equipment manufactured among the tribes of Israel. All their instruments must be sharpened, repaired, and built by Philistines, ensuring their military prowess and industrial influence. It tells us in 1 Samuel 13 that the people of Israel were so fearful that they were hiding in bushes and in caves and in holes in the ground and even graves. Imagine how messed up things must be to snuggle in a tomb in hopes not to get found. The fear that must have gripped these men is heartbreaking. Humanity thrives in the light. We express the wonder of God who designed us to be his expression of authority and creativity in the world. Hiding goes against who we are. Humanity must be known. They were conquered and felt powerless to confront their overlords. It was hopeless. Things are so bare. There are only 2 swords allowed in all of Israel, Saul's and Jonathan's. Saul continued to lose men and knows he has no place in attacking the invincible Philistines. He is afraid, frustrated, humiliated, and defeated. But Jonathan, he wakes up one day and is ready for a fight. It seems Jonathan came to life one day. I'm done hiding. I'm waiting and wishing no more. Today, I'm going to start the fight, and if God is with me, victory will be mine. I'm not wasting another minute. He looks at his armor-bearer and says, let's go over and see the Philistines. His armor-bearer most likely being a teenager whose sole job was to carry Jonathan's gear. This kid takes care of Jonathan. He is trained to serve, not to fight. He has no armor or weapon of his own. Warfare is not in his skill set. The armor-bearer replies, do all that is in your heart. I'm with you, heart and soul. Heart and soul. No matter what, I'm with you. If this is my last day, I'm going with you. I have come to serve you no matter the cost. Let's take this hill. Whatever you say, Jonathan, I'm with you. Oh, to have a friend like that. Oh, to have friends like that. So Jonathan goes and provokes the Philistines by setting up a test to see if God's hand was on him that day for victory. He says to his armor-bearer, we'll show ourselves to them, and if they come down to us, we're toast. But if they call us up, we know that God has given us the battle. The plan is set. No plan B. No backup, no surrender. It's sink or swim. No one even knows they're going. The king nor the priest have been informed. The soldiers are not on standby. Jonathan says, let's provoke the enemy and hope God gives us a victory. When Jonathan steps out, the Philistines yell, come up here. We'll teach you a lesson. Jonathan looks at his armor-bearer and whispers, God has given us the battle. Let's run to this hill. God's given it to Israel. They crawl up the hill on hands and knees, and when they reach the soldiers, they begin to mow them down. This arrogant, ironclad army retreats in moments, and the distance of a football field, Jonathan has already cut down 20 men. Remember, only Jonathan has a sword. The armor-bearer now has the pick of the spoils. Within steps, the servant has access to 20 swords, 20 daggers, 20 spears, 20 shields, 20 pieces of armor. Everything he wants is at his disposal now. I imagine this is how we look in the spiritual realm when we find Jesus, from death to immediate equipping against everything. The young man is now a warrior, helping Jonathan fend off the enemy in Israel's way because he answered the call that morning to go with Jonathan to look at the garrison. His response would change his future forever. His choice to follow the man of courage, honor, and faith would set things completely different. Jonathan was the type of guy you just said yes to and sacrificed for, and the guy you want to fight beside you. You want to be a part of this warrior story. As they took the hill, Jonathan advanced, killing those who came with a frontal attack, and the armor-bearer was on Jonathan's 6, taking care of those attacking from behind. Kind of like kung fu movies. Remember back when the one guy would fight on one side and you basically would just be back-to-back and knocking out people in this big old circle? Another way to see this maneuver is Jonathan would wound people on the front side, and the armor-bearer was finishing them off as they were running through the field. Either way, they were working together, moving in sync with one another. There was a mass confusion that took place in the enemy's camp. Then the whole Philistine garrison descends into a panic. Every soldier, raider, and servant in the Philistine camp trembled, grabbed a weapon to begin the charge against these two men when an earthquake shook the ground. An earthquake. Warriors hit the ground, but Jonathan kept advancing. Horrifying sounds were coming from all directions. From a distance, Saul heard the sounds and rallied his men to join the fight. The enemy marauders were in such upheaval, they turned upon one another and began to stab one another. As they ran out of their tents, swords drawn, they thrust their fellow soldiers. Saul and his army arrived to finish the advance. The roar of the mysterious noise, the earthquake, the camp's confusion, and Saul's army in pursuit inspired the tribe of Ephraim to rise and join the battle. They split the Philistines as they retreat to the north, creating even more havoc. God demolished the Philistine army that day. That's the story of Jonathan's greatest hour. I don't know about you, but I want to have a destiny that's clear and strong enough that when the time for me to be called comes up, I'm ready. When we're prepared for the battle before we're in it, that's a person that everyone needs.